animal. We hear the glass break. That means it's time to welcome into the show Austin Price of Volquest.com. He joins us every week thanks to Rick Terry Jewelry Designs. Austin, thank you for the time as always. Last week out the door, you hinted take the over for the month of April. Some commitments could be coming, and some commitments came for Tennessee up front on the offensive line for 2024. What can you tell us about the newest additions to the class for Tennessee, adding some offensive linemen?
Yeah, a couple of big guys, and Jesse Perry, offensive lineman from Middle Tennessee Christian over there in Murfreesboro, Rutherford County. You know, I think he's still a bit raw, especially when it comes to pass protection, but run blocking, he's exactly what you want. And so, you know, it'll be up to Glenn Ellerby to kind of teach him the tricks to the trade when it comes to pass blocking, because they just don't do a whole lot of that at Middle Tennessee Christian. And then Gage Ginther, some will say that he's the best player in the state of Colorado, Fort Collins area, and another big kid who is athletic, came in 2 weeks ago now, and you know, really hit it off with the staff, and you know, left here and told his family he was going to pull the trigger, and they were very supportive, and you know, Tennessee's very supportive of that decision as well.
Austin Price, Volquest.com, covering Tennessee football recruiting. We'll get to football on the field with the orange and white game coming up. What is the latest, though, on recruiting from guys who have visited or are coming up to Knoxville to visit here soon, big names that Tennessee might be going after?
Well, Bodie Cahoon, linebacker from Roanoke area, was here the last couple of days. He'll be back for an official visit in June. Don't see Tennessee taking any linebackers until June or July, and that'll be kind of going down to, you know, Tylen Singleton, you know, obviously Edwin Spillman, Bodie Cahoon. You look at, you know, kind of where they are at the linebacker spots. You feel pretty good because they're in on several big time guys, you know, and so, you know, I really do like where Tennessee's at in recruiting that position. They've done a nice job the last few years, and Brian Jean-Marie has finally gotten that room where he kind of likes it as far as depth, so to speak. And then, you know, coming up this weekend, Tennessee will have, you know, some really nice players in town, including Cam Fountain, defensive lineman out of Atlanta, Kamarion Franklin, defensive lineman out of North Mississippi. That one's one Rodney Garner's deep in, and, you know, feel like that, you know, with a good trip this weekend, it just solidifies Tennessee as a major contender for him long term. And, you know, it's a week where Tennessee is continuing to get some momentum. Ed Reed's Farouk, young man out of St. Francis up there in Baltimore. He's nearing a decision. Tennessee appears to be in pretty good shape with the corner from the Baltimore area.
Austin Price, Volquest.com. You're hearing a lot of buzz about Tennessee players in terms of the NFL draft, and you know, we've heard little comments made by some of the rival coaches inside of the SEC about Tennessee's offense. We've heard Josh Heupel come out and talk about Hendon Hooker's responsibility in Tennessee's offense. What are you hearing on the recruiting trail about how Tennessee is handling maybe some subtle negative recruiting about, you know, Tennessee's offense?
Well, I mean, schools, you know, in the upper echelon ones don't like it when a new team enters the fray. Mm-hmm. Tennessee's had success the last couple of years, had success on the field and in recruiting, and you know, the schools that have been up at the top don't like it. Just like, you know, when Tennessee was at the top back in the 90s and early 2000s and some schools started to make a move, they didn't like it. I mean, it's just part of the game. And so, you know, it's one of those things that Josh Heupel will have to continue to combat. But the best thing going for Josh Heupel is the NFL draft. And if Darnell Wright and Jalen Hyatt and Hendon Hooker and Cedric Tillman and a bunch of those players get drafted in rounds 1 and 2, then, you know, that speaks for itself.
Austin Price, Volquest.com, is with us thanks to Rick Terry Jewelry Designs. Austin, is there a position battle or two that interests you the most heading into the orange and white game coming up on Saturday?
I mean, I don't put a ton of stock in the orange and white game, never do. I'm not sure the coaches do either. You know, they're really looking more at those individualized scrimmages. In this one, I mean, I think you want to stay healthy. You want to continue to see growth at corner and safety on the defensive side of the ball. And then offensively, you know, you got to figure out who your offensive linemen are. Who's your left guard? Who's your right tackle? You kind of feel like you know who's going to be your left tackle, John Campbell, your center, Cooper Mays, your right guard, Javonte Spraggins. Other spots, little more up in the air, and so, you know, a little healthy competition going on there. And then, you know, I think Tennessee really needs to stay healthy coming out of the orange and white game, especially a position like tight end where you're not super deep anyway.
What vet on this team do you feel like that we're not talking enough about that we should be talking more about entering the orange and white game, entering off-season conditioning, and with the program in the summer, heading into the fall?
You know, I think Jacob Warren is poised to have a really good final year. If he can stay healthy. Now, that's the ultimate caveat.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that, you know, he's got something about him. You know, this will be his 6th year. He's an older guy. If he can stay healthy, I think Jacob Warren is someone who can have a real impactful fall for this football team just because of his big catch radius and really good hands. And then defensively, I'll go Bryson Eason or Elijah Simmons, 2 guys that, again, older, you know, uber talented, have yet to find the consistency that Rodney Gardner likes, but all it takes is that one moment for the light to come on, like it has for a few other older guys the last few years, and Katie bar the door.
Yeah, what do you think Rodney Gardner thinks right now about the defensive line? And right now is not when the season begins, but where things stand in terms of how many guys they'll be able to count on trending toward the fall?
Well, you're looking at double digits. You know, I mean, he played a big rotation last year. I expect him to have a similar rotation this year. They brought in Omar Norman a lot. You know, they feel like Tyree Weathersby, once he gets here, can help them. David Hobbs, you know, he had to miss spring, but, again, someone who can, you know, spot help them along with Weathersby as true freshmen. And then, you know, you hope that some of these younger guys on the edge, James Pierce, Josh Josephs, all continue to come along.
The name we're hearing the most about as far as youngsters flashing so far during the spring is Ariana Carter. Why? Why do you think he's been able to flash? What specifically has he been able to do to stand out?
Well, I mean, why is pretty simple. I mean, you know, he did your show right after he committed to Tennessee.
That's true.
On a serious note, you know, he's just super smart. He's already athletic, but he just grasps it, and he's driven. You know, he came in here thinking, I'm going to play. And a lot of kids think that, but this kid's just kind of different in that regard. Like don't take no for an answer, just going to dive into the playbook and film room and just immerse himself in it. The kid loves football. And when they love football like that, they have a shot early on.
Maybe you've already said a name here with some of the other questions. Austin Price of Volquest is with us. Is there a name that you've heard more about over the last few weeks that has produced more, impressed the coaches more than maybe you were thinking when spring practice began?
Probably Elijah Simmons. Had a good solid spring, and that's someone who Rodney Gardner's kind of, I think, probably scratched his head a lot about because, I mean, you know, Elijah's super talented, but has just, you know, failed to put it together in a lot of ways. But has had a good spring. We'll see if he can take it to fall. You know, and then, you know, defensively, you know, I think the defensive secondary to me is still the biggest question mark because will Tennessee actually go with some youth and go with some more athleticism, or will they roll with some of those older guys?
Yeah, that's a fair question. That's one that I have. Okay, the young, talented defensive backs, they have ability, but it's one thing to be excited about what you see in the spring and their talent versus how much trust they have in the coaches when it's time to kick off the season.
Oh, 100%. You know, I mean, it's kind of like any of these freshman running backs that's getting some love. At the end of the day, when Jabari Small comes back and Jalen Wright, you know, good to go, which I mean he's really good to go now. It's more just, you know, load management and seeing what the young kids got. I mean, they go back to spots 4 and 5 in the rotation, not 2 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, inevitably there's going to be some youngsters play. That happens every year. But, you know, if you're a Tennessee fan and you're expecting all this youth to be out there, you know, I'll have to see it to believe it. I tell you one that I think, you know, is really going to help this football team is Gabe Judy Lally. I really like that kid. His mental makeup, you know, we had him on Ball Club Confidential a few weeks ago, and he's an impressive kid, smart player, knows where to be, and runs well enough to be, I think, a real player for Tennessee.
He came on the show right after he announced his commitment as well. Maybe there is a Josh and Swain boost. Maybe it's combined because the Volquest connection too, doing interviews with him. So
yeah, no doubt.
The guys that talk to you, Austin, then come on Josh and Swain, they get a bit of a kick.
Yeah, they ball out. No coincidence. AP, who is RB number one? Who is going to be RB number one? You have two guys that are very similar in age. One that was not the starter last year to open the season, but one that ended up having the most yards and had the best game in the Orange Bowl in Jalen Wright. But like, who is RB1 and who is going to be RB1 in your opinion?
I think it'll end up being Wright. If I were Jabari Small, and he had to have the shoulder surgery, right? I'd be sitting there this spring chomping at the bit because he knows what Jalen Wright did those first 7 or 8 practices. Really impressive. Staff was just next level move by Jalen Wright. And then what Dylan Sampson has done, take away the freshman. That to me, those don't matter. What Dylan Sampson has done, to me, would give me pause if I'm Jabari Small about, what my load will look like in the fall, because I think it's going to look different. I think Jabari Small still may be the first running back out there when they play Virginia, but I don't think that that's a given like it would have been 5 months ago, and I think the number of carries that he gets this fall could be different because of Dylan Sampson's growth and Jalen Wright's continued growth.
Which would be impactful for Tennessee's offense with how they want to run the football this upcoming fall. They'll play on Saturday in the orange and white game. There's recruiting coverage to keep up with. You can see all of that from Austin and his colleagues at Volquest.com, and every week you hear him on Josh and Swain. Thanks to Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, making it unique, making it special, making it just for you. They want to be your jeweler there at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs. Austin, thank you for the time as always, the insight. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.